it is time. Hey there, Groovy Peeps. I'm Nightmare Maven. Welcome back to my channel. If you happen to be new here, hello, welcome. I talk about spooky movies, spooky books all year round, so if you end up also liking spooky things all year round, you should subscribe. So it is that time of year again, creeps. Time to talk about where we are so far in the year for horror movies. I'm not gonna go over my entire ranking of 2023 horror movies so far. I do have that list in the works. It's private on my letterbox right now. I won't reveal it until the end of the year. But I am gonna share with you what is in my top 10 so far now that we are at the halfway point for the year. Obviously, this is subject to change a lot, but that's part of the fun. We can see at the end of the year how much my top 10 has changed, because I feel like it is gonna change. There's a lot of new horror movies coming out in the back half of this year that I'm super excited about. So let's get right into it. We got a lot to go through. A new mom struggles with the reality of motherhood versus the shiny, easy internet influencer version of motherhood online in Baby Ruby. I wasn't expecting to like this one as much as I did. It made me cringe, it made me uncomfy, it made me scared, and that's really all the emotions you're hoping for in a horror movie, right? More shocked than anything that I have not only this pregnancy horror movie on my top 10, but two. There's another one later on in the list. I don't know who this Vicky is anymore. Normally they're not my cup of tea. But maybe I just needed a certain type of pregnancy horror movie, and Baby Ruby is it. Right, coming in at number 9, the Deadites are out of the woods and in the city in Evil Dead Rise, where a high-rise apartment is overrun with the dead when a family accidentally comes across the Necronomicon Ex Mortis. This was a solid entry into the Evil Dead franchise. It's got everything you could want or expect. It's gross, it's gory, it's a bit of fun, it's scary, and the standout performance that Alyssa Sutherland gave, people are still talking about it. I am predicting that a lot of the Halloween costumes this year might be her character from this movie. I feel like that would be a really fun costume to do for Halloween. Truly an iconic character and an iconic performance. Coming in at number 8, an unsuccessful writer has the wildest of vacations when he falls in with a group of rich couples who commit crimes with no repercussions in Infinity Pool. This was a wild ride from start to finish. Since I've watched it, I've read so many reviews and analyses of it. I've watched a lot of deep dive videos, and I still feel like there's just so much to unpack with this movie. There's so much to talk about, so much to pick at. I love those kinds of movies. And I think maybe a younger Maven, a previous version of Maven, may have watched this movie and said something like, oh, this was good, it was a really well-made film, but I don't think I'll ever watch it again. And I don't know what it is about this one though, but I am gonna watch this many more times because, like I said, there's a lot to unpack here, and I feel like you could watch this movie 10 different times and see it 10 different ways. And yet another iconic performance from Mia Goth. The women are really killing it this year in horror, as evidenced by this list. Okay, let's move on. Coming in at number 7, two friends riding out COVID lockdowns together find themselves under attack from masked assailants in Sick. Who'd have thunk a pandemic horror would have made my top 10 list so far? Sick had a bit of a meta edge to it, and y'all know I eat that shit up. And it's no surprise it was co-written by Kevin Williamson of Scream fame. It's definitely got his signature all over it. It's fun, it's clever, it's scary, but in the way that only Kevin Williamson can write. It's a very distinct version of those three things together. And the movie was surprisingly brutal too. Like, I was expecting a bit more of like a psychological edge to this movie, but it ended up being quite action-y and pretty gory too. Coming in at number 6, Chucky walked so Megan could run. When Katie's parents die in a car accident, she goes to live with her Aunt Gemma, who's an engineer making AI robotics toys for a living. Ask my Patreons that are on my Discord. I had a bit of an emotional crisis because I genuinely felt I guess like the time that has passed between now and the beginning of this year, I felt like Maven came out in January of 2022. It's felt that long since the start of the year. Not relevant to the placement of this movie on this list, so we'll move on. I just wanted to share that. Anyways, Maven is super campy, super fun. I will say when I went into the movie initially, I wasn't 100% on whether the humor was supposed to be intentional or not. After rewatching it many times, I feel like I finally got the movie and it became so much more of an enjoyable watch for me. But Maven has very quickly become a horror icon. Maybe that's why I thought it's been out for longer. And a sequel is already in the works. I'm pretty sure I've seen that floating around the internet. All right, we're at the halfway mark. Coming in at number 5. The Deadites aren't the only horror icons taking on a new locale. Ghostface follows the new Woodsboro blood to the Big Apple in Scream 6. All right, I'll admit, I'm starting to get used to the new Woodsboro gang already. And I have to admit, it was really fun seeing Ghostface in a new location. I was a bit apprehensive about this one because it felt like it was almost spoofing Scream 2 a bit too much. That's the thing with Scream movies though, like everything they do is purposeful and intentional. But it did deliver, especially in the brutality of this one. Holy shit. Possibly the most brutal Scream? Maybe? It might be. And I don't know what the intentions are for any other Scream sequels following this one, but if their intention is to kind of riff off of the original sequels, fingers crossed that Scream 7 is a bit of a spoof of Scream 3, which I would be very excited for because I feel like Scream 3 is very much underappreciated. I don't know how this could happen, but I would really love for Parker Posey to come back. None of the new Scream movies have broken into my original ranking though. So this one is peaking at the number 5 spot in my top 10 for now. Coming in at number 4, a gas station attendant picks up an unknown call, which happens to be another woman trying to escape her abusive ex in the woods in Unseen. I am a sucker for a horror gimmick, and this idea of somebody picking up an unknown call, a video call no less, and it's somebody asking for help and asking you to see for them so they can get out of a dangerous situation. It's so fun. I love it. It feels very much like scenes from a hat, you know, like you're placing an intentional limitation on yourself for writing a story and saying like, okay, where can we play within the sandbox? You know what I mean? It's super fun. I really enjoyed this movie. And I truly loved the female friendship in this movie. Friendships between women and femme presenting people just are, they can be so deep and so emotional so quickly. Like the connections that are formed in a short span of time. Very real, happens in real life all the time. And I love seeing it in a movie like this. And it was to the point that it made me like tear up at the end. Not only did it deliver a good time, but it made me cry a little bit. And I also have to give a shout out to Missy Pyle playing just an iconic, unhinged Florida woman in this. What a scene stealer. I loved her in this movie. All right, going into the top 3. Dracula's bug-eating assistant is trying to break out from under the vampire lord's abusive employment in Renfield. Dracula is back, baby, as evidenced by the multiple Dracula reimaginings we are getting in the coming months. But Renfield, I can already predict, is gonna be the most fun of the bunch, that's for sure. And I loved this take on an iconic classic character from the novel. Dracula has always been a timeless character, and I love that Renfield is getting the same treatment because at least in the book, I saw his story as more tragic than anything else. So it's fun to see him in a new light, take on a more heroic role. And he's very relatable too. Plus the gore, I was really not expecting it to be as gory as it was. It was almost slapstick, the amount of gore that was in this movie. But I really enjoyed it. I think it fit really well. It was like a total 180 from how I imagined Renfield from the book. So bravo for this one. All right, coming in at number 2, Valeria's joy at becoming a mother is quickly diminished when she becomes the target of a terrifying entity straight out of folklore and legend in Huesera, the Bone Woman. I told you there was another pregnancy horror on here. Huesera completely blew me away. The film is so beautifully put together, it's visually interesting, and it's terrifying as fuck. Like, there are some scenes in that movie I am still thinking about, still. And kind of like Infinity Pool, there are so many different ways you can view this movie, so many different avenues you can explore if you want to just like deep dive into the meanings behind this movie and all the themes and messages. Really love that. And I was transfixed from the get-go, and I really do love a folklore moment, like something about like old legends and myths being placed in present day is so terrifying to me. If I hear a movie is based in any way on like folklore or folk legends or anything like that, I'm there. I'm gonna watch it. Right, taking the #1 spot, a brother and sister wake up one day to find their parents gone, as well as all the doors and windows in their house in Skinamarink. I think if a movie is scary enough to bring me to tears, it needs to be in the #1 spot, no? And for anyone wondering, and in a no context kind of way for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's the look under the bed scene. That was the scene that made me cry because it was so scary. This, very obviously, as you can tell from the trailer, is a film that is stylized in a certain kind of way. It's not for everybody. As evidenced when this movie came out, it was very split. It is the slowest of burns, and I would argue it's, I think, just a slow movie. There's not even really that much of a climax to this film, and not a lot of people like that, and that's okay. But it just so happened to be stylized like those fucking terrifying analog horror videos that scare me so much, in case you were wondering what things I find scary. So I think it goes without saying, even though I've just said it a lot, Skinamarink scared the shit out of me. So there you have it. That's my top 10 list for horror movies so far this year in 2023. I genuinely cannot wait for some of the horror movies we have coming out the back half of this year. I think it's gonna be a really good year for horror, guys. And there's still a lot that I still haven't seen yet, don't worry. If you guys remember like last year and the year before, I tend to kind of squeeze in all the new horror releases I didn't catch like right at the end of the year. If I missed any that you feel are worthy of being in the top 10 of 2023, let me know in the comment section, and let me know some of your other favorites that you've watched this year. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new here, become a creepy peep today, and I'll see you very soon with a new video. Until then, stay strange. Bye.